Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We got a big special guest today. Texas head softball coach Mike White will be joining us here in about 15 minutes, so we'll be talking to him about Texas and their number one ranking. But also got a question for the chat and for you guys. Who's the player that you're looking forward to seeing this spring the most? So who out there, and tell us why as well. But we'll start off with you two. Who's a guy that y'all are all eyes on?
Arch Manning. I mean, to me, I think that quarterback remains the most important position on the field, right? And if I had to say, this team will go as far as he takes them, I don't think I'm wrong in that regard. I think that Steve Sarkisian and Brandon Harris and Chris Gilbert and everybody involved in player acquisition has done a good enough job that now it's down to the X's and O, or the actual execution of it. Now, we could talk about guys like Jordan Washington or even Cedric Baxter returning, things like that. But Arch for me is that guy. And beyond that, I'll put this out there. I'm going to say Colton Vasek. And I tell you why. The difference in this Texas defense from not having a pass rush to having a pass rush. Jerry, you and I have talked about this before. PK's defense, his first 3 years in Austin, it almost felt like because they play so much zone, they were waiting for things to happen to them. You add a pass rush to that element, and all of a sudden you don't feel that way about this defense. You feel like the defense is aggressive, even though you're being fairly safe behind the group behind them. And so guys like Vasek, of course, Colin Simmons and Ethan Burke and Trey Moore returning, but a guy like Colton Vasek adding to that mix and getting even a better pass rush, that's how I see it. I guess is the best way to put it for me. What about you, Jerry?
Yeah, so for me, it's going to actually be Brandon Baker at right tackle. And here's why I say that. So Texas has gone from when's the last guy Texas had drafted as an offensive tackle, and Texas has vastly underachieved having in terms of offensive line being drafted in the NFL. So now 2 straight right tackles are about to be drafted, and your left tackle is about to go in the first round. And Trevor Gooseby looks like a future draft pick as long as he continues to get stronger and develop. Is Brandon Baker going to look like another NFL draft pick? So is Texas going to – and I'm not saying they're going to be the same players, but here's why that's important. Arch Manning should have the same – if Brandon Baker wins the job, he's a 5-star prospect, really talented. And look, Andre Kojo has talent too. I'm not discounting talent of others. But if you're sitting here saying, all right, you're going to have Arch Manning for 2 or 3 years, a lot of people say, no way he stays 3. Well, you just never know with the Mannings. I'm just going to put that out there. Probably not, but you never know. Then if the left tackle and right tackle are both NFL players around them, that gives your offense a chance to really, really move the football, score the football, make big plays down the field. So that right tackle position, with where it's come at Texas, how far it's come, has my eye this spring. And he's got to be a good player. Whoever the right tackle is needs to be a good player, Bobby, to help protect Arch.
I love it. Yeah, no, we're on the right track. I think we're both on the right track. I want to see Texas's defense, and this is my point, and your point's almost similar. Those pieces need to step up for either the defense to continue on its path or the offensive line to continue on its path.
Yeah,
that they've kind of already laid the groundwork, right? Brandon Baker 3 years ago would have had to start as a freshman, most likely.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out there. I mean, that's the difference of where Texas is at. And I feel I like your choice there, Jerry. I like it a lot because people. I think what's interesting, we both just mentioned the offensive and defensive line.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about a running back or a wide receiver or a defensive back. We talked about the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
And so that's good.
Well, by the way, we'll probably hit on this a little later, but I wanted to bring this up. Huge women's basketball game tonight. Tennessee and Austin, a top 10 matchup there after a wild night on the men's side in the SEC. I mean, wild night in SEC. If you didn't see the finishes, man, it was crazy in SEC basketball last night.
No. All right, well, let's move on here. Coaches, of course, on the road. New offers have been going out. Jerry, what's the latest there?
Yeah, so we had Ray Gates on yesterday, the head coach at North Crowley, and obviously we're talking about Jonathan Cunningham, who's at Texas turn time, but we asked about Aaron Bradshaw. We asked about Aaron Bradshaw because we knew an offer was a possibility with Steve Sarkisian and the staff rolling through yesterday. Well, Texas offered the safety from North Crowley, the junior safety. So I do believe, based on what I've seen, I was by North Crowley the week of the Texas-Ohio State game when I was out there bumping around the schools. I do believe Texas has now offered the two best safeties in the junior class that I've seen in Texas. And that is Donovan Webb, who I think is a tremendous player. Texas offered a couple days ago at Frisco Panther Creek, teammate Jalen Lott, and now Aaron Bradshaw. They're different players. Donovan Webb has been dominant on the high school level for a while now. Aaron Bradshaw kind of had his coming out party last year, but different types of players at the safety position. Donovan Webb's more in that Andrew Makuba body mold. Extremely productive, 113 and 120 tackles the last 2 years as a safety in high school football is an unbelievable number. 9 interceptions, multiple kick returns. Bradshaw's 6'3", 185, seeing him in person a couple weeks ago. And then you have Chase Calicut, who Texas offered from North Shore last week. I saw him this year too. I view him maybe growing into an outside backer. I mean, he's a long frame kid. He's 6'3", 190-ish right now. That kid's it's going to be hard for him not to be 220, 225 down the road, in my opinion. And I think he could be a really good linebacker coverage guy playing off the edge, rushing the passer. So 3 offers went out. Then Terry Joseph was up in New Jersey last night seeing Jordan Thomas, a kid that Texas has offered and had on campus before at Bergen Catholic, a 4-star junior nickel corner, I should say, type of player. Terry Joseph went up to see him last night, and there's that picture with Jordan Thomas. He visited A&M last week, and he's not going to be at Texas this week, and he said he'll be back later in the spring. So that's kind of where. And then Kenny Baker was in Birmingham, enemy territory, seeing Vodney Cleveland, the defensive lineman that was a teammate of the kid that I thought was unbelievable last year, Jordan Crawford, going to Auburn on defensive line. I just think he's a stud. And the 5-star corner Naeem Offord. So Kenny Baker making his way through SEC territory, right on into the Atlanta area, which I'm sure he'll see Tico Crittenden, and then down into Florida next week. He already saw Jamion Winfield. Jamion Winfield, the defensive lineman out of Richardson, will be in Austin this weekend for Junior Day per somebody at Richardson High yesterday. Then Kyle Flood. Sark had a big day yesterday. John Turntine, Toa Katoa, I believe Felix Ojo. Felix Ojo will be at Junior Day on the 25th. John Turntine will not. He has a family event, but he'll be on campus multiple times in a June official visit. So Felix Ojo will be on campus. So that list grows. Here's Ojo, a left tackle tape of him. He's more a very highly ranked player, but you can watch the tape. I mean, he's not where John Turntine is a prospect. He's going to need time. He crosses his feet a lot in pass pro. He's going to have to get a lot stronger. He's got really good athleticism, high-end athlete, really good frame. But I think getting stronger, continue to get more physical, not dissimilar. He's ranked higher, but not dissimilar to Trevor Gooseby in that regard. He's got the great frame, but he's got to add a lot of strength and weight to that and that muscle mass to that frame. But a high-end prospect that'll be in Austin this weekend that Texas likes, and really, really good player. I think he's up maybe on a different timeline from a guy like a John Turntine in the same class.
Yeah, it may be, but he looks like he can extend his arms.
Yeah, he's got long arms.
And be very balanced when doing so, Jerry.
Yeah.
A lot of guys can extend their arms and lose balance. He looks like he keeps his. What high school? And he's in Mansfield.
Mansfield, Lake Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, He looks good, man. Hey, let's talk a little bit about this from Jeff Carey. 22.1 million viewers for the college football playoff final. It was the third lowest audience of the 11 college football playoff title games, with all three occurring the past 5 years. The ratings were not good for the whole college football playoff. What do y'all think of that? I mean, first of all, it's on ESPN, which not everybody has cable. I want to put that out there. But long and short of it, what are y'all's thoughts on the college football playoff format affecting the ratings overall? I mean, it's a 12-team format, but 22. I mean, Jerry, you got to say this. Before the game, you were predicting that this
I thought it'd be a lot higher. I thought it'd be a lot higher than it was.
Yeah, and they just didn't generate it, and maybe it was a Monday because it was a Monday night game.
I mean, it was potentially.
What were the reasons behind it?
I think you hit on it. It's on ESPN. It's not on. It wasn't ABC. It was which is obviously where it should be. That probably adds another 8 to 10 million to some of those games, but because it should have been. You would think it would have been higher. I was wrong. I thought it'd be higher. But I underestimated the ESPN, I believe. I don't think it's a lack of effort or lack of interest. I don't agree that this should be peeled back. I kind of disagree with Jeff Carey here. Love Jeff, but those ratings are really good. We're still talking about college athletics here. I mean, and all those games are on ESPN. But I don't know. I think college football's in the best place it's been. And of the playoff games, how many of those were the highest rated in college football season this year? I think that's what you have to look at. How many of those college playoff games were in the top? How many were in the top 15 or 20 of the college football season? If they were,
all of them were, except for maybe Penn State, SMU.
So it's still a great success because it was bigger than anything else on the college football season almost. So I don't know. I think it's just going to continue to it's going to continue to grow.
I do too. I feel the same way. I think that I feel like the problem is people are buying the rights, like ESPN bought the rights, so they could do to the college football playoff, so they can do with it and put it where they want to. Can you imagine the Super Bowl only being on ESPN? You can't, right? It's a worldwide event. If you want college football to be that next, you should not put it on a pay channel. Just my opinion. That's all I would say on that. So, well, fair enough.
Also worth noting that football as a whole is down. The NFL playoffs are down 8% compared to this time last year. So it's not just college football, and college football is 12% from last year.
So here's the thing too with that is, like if I miss a basketball game, I just go to YouTube and watch the condensed highlights for 15 minutes, or a football game. I mean, how many people are doing that now? How many people are doing that? How many people are just following via social media now?
As opposed to TV.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I think it's happening in all platforms and not just sports, everything a little bit.
Yeah. That's fair. Hey, Blake, I know we're getting ready to have Coach Mike White on from the University of Texas softball team. Number 2 ranked Mike White, by the way. We'll see how high he goes this year. But before we do that, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, the Thursday Coffee and Football, brought to you by our friends over at Austin Underground. Since 2004, Austin Underground has specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider just too risky. Rick Vavro and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. Thank you so much, Rick, and your team over there. They also have a sister company called Texas Road. If you need any big road projects on a ranch, subdivision, etc. Again, that's Rick Vavro, his team at Austin Underground and Texas Road.
All right, guys. Well, I think our special guest is ready. I'm going to bring him in. Texas head softball coach Mike White. Coach White, how are we doing this morning?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Hopefully it gets a little bit warmer for practice this afternoon, but we're excited to have no snow. Right?
I love hearing your accent this early in the morning, Coach. Coach, you come out, you're ranked highly again this year. You've got the program going in the right direction. Give us a little preview about what you expect from your women this year on the diamond.
Yeah, we'll finally be probably considered no longer a young team. We've got some senior leadership coming back, obviously led by Reese Atwood, Tegan Cavan, Caden Henry, Katie Stewart, Ashton Maloney. There's a lot of good names coming back, and we're excited to get the season going here in a couple of weeks. We start off against Louisiana for a couple of games. We're just tired of playing each other, playing ourselves. It's a no-win situation, but I'm really looking forward to the start of the season.
Coach, coming in preseason, number 1 ranking. Congrats on that, by the way. I know it doesn't mean anything to you guys, but still congrats on it because it does help in recruiting, right? The kids see that you're ranked number 1 and always hanging around the rim, as we call it. But talk about the schedule. 11 of the top 25 teams in this conference, 11 of the top 25 teams in that ranking are from the SEC. I believe you have 18 games because they're 3-game series against some of those ranked opponents in the SEC. Talk about the conference, because everybody talks about the football. People are talking about the basketball now, but baseball, softball are extremely difficult. Talk about the conference as a whole and then kind of your schedule this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great honor to be ranked number 1, but, also there's some great teams there as well. Like Florida was the other team that was ranked 1 at one stage, and they're going to be tough this year. Oklahoma, always, they're the team that's still to beat. They're the national champions, and, they don't get any easier, that's for sure. And, going to play in these other environments is going to be a little difficult. Obviously, we're taking, 3 flights now, go to Gainesville, Mississippi State, I believe. And, there's one more there as well. So, it's not going to be easy on the travel side of things and getting ready, but we're looking forward to the challenge. And then even preseason, we're playing Texas Tech a couple of times, with Nigel Kennedy, number 1 pitcher in the country last year, number 1 player. So we're preparing ourselves for a tough onslaught early on.
Coach, go ahead, Blake. Sorry.
Actually, I wanted to dive a little bit more into the schedule because for those that don't know, the SEC schedule has already been released. Every opponent that you're facing is in the top 25 or receiving votes category. There's not a single unranked opponent on your conference schedule.
Yeah, sometimes it's by design and sometimes it's not. But we do try to play a difficult schedule. We want to challenge our team. Early on, I think, it comes from my men's fast pitch playing days. If you want to be the best, you got to play the best, and we're certainly trying to do that.
Reese Atwood, bona fide star for you, Coach?
There's no doubt. She's a leader on the team, and she's even becoming more vocal this year. I think as she turns into being a junior, she's the one we're looking to lead the program. Not only, just what she says, but just her mannerisms and the way she works, on and off the field. I mean, I think she's great, and I just like what she's doing so far as well. And along with her and Tegan Cavan, Vivian Martinez is another one. There's several leaders. Katie Simmons is one. I think there hasn't been a big name for us in the past, but it certainly has looked good this fall and spring.
Hey, Coach, newcomers to the program, to your team. Who are a couple of the newcomers that the Texas fans should familiarize themselves with?
Well, we had a transfer from Katie Bennett, a really good ball player. She's able to do several things. Obviously, with the loss of Bella Dayton last year, we were looking for another left-hand speed type player, and Katie fills that bill. She's able to kind of drop some short stuff and hit the long ball as well, and then to be able to play multiple positions. She'll be looking at backups at even starting in maybe left field or even second, short, and third base. There's possibilities there for her. So she covers a lot of things for us. So she's one. Shylin Brister, a freshman coming in, is getting better week by week, and she's surprising us with her ability to hit. I mean, we knew she was pretty good defensively, but her hitting prowess reminds me a lot of Alyssa Washington, actually, to tell you the truth. Kind of a slight build, but it's got a lot of pop in her bat, and she's been showing that. And then, to bolster our pitching staff, we brought in Cam Salmon from California, and she reminds me a lot of Jessica Mullins, who was the standout for Texas State Texas State. So I like what she's doing. His ability to throw up in the zone hard and then throw a really good changeup. So those are the newcomers to the program this year. Well, along with Rachel Wells, who was a walk-on for us, first walk-on we've had, I think, in the program. She's one that we just got for some depth. We're only carrying 20 players this year, so we needed a little more depth, and we just like what she was doing with her power. So she could be one to get better and be in the program later in the season.
Coach, you brought up something just there that a lot of people are not thinking about as we talk about the NIL age of college sports. How is that going to affect the House settlement? How is that going to affect you guys and at Texas softball? Are you adding scholarships, having to cull scholarships a little bit? What's the process for those other sports and how you guys are seeing that?
Yeah, we want our program to get up to 25 players. That's the number we're looking to do, and so we're bringing in a bigger squad next year, some more people coming in, and then along probably with the transfer portal. So we're going to try and get that number up to 25. I think that's good. I mean, as far as the scholarship numbers, we'll wait and see what that's going to be. The House settlement. I mean, even if you ask Del Conte, he's going to say, "I don't know." So it's still beyond my pay grade, but. It's an exciting time, especially if you're a student athlete. I mean, I think that, what happens with the House settlement is going to say a lot. Is there going to be Title IX requirements there? Is it, how's it going to work out? And none of us really know. But obviously the support we need from our boosters and donors to be able to kind of, enable these players to have no cost to go to school. I think that's one of the biggest things right there. Some obviously are making some money, and we're rewarding some of our players through opportunities that come up. And we're always looking for more of those as we go forward.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask you this, and it's one of the questions I like that ask coaches. When you get so close to climbing that mountaintop, and then you have that off season, do you see a difference in your team, in their focus? Is because I've just found when you get so close, those teams, you don't have to motivate those teams really. They're pretty much self-motivated because they want to get to that final step and hoist that trophy at the end. Do you find that with your team that, look, I mean, yeah, I have to do my job, but the motivation part, these girls have right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said you can't motivate the unmotivatable, and they're motivated. They want it. I mean, they come up with a maxim this year of fuel the fire. They want that fire to burn a little bit deeper to help push them in the off season. And we've seen a really tight squad this fall and going into the spring. I think they're hungry for it, and that's what you want. You want them to push and do more than what we want as coaches. I think we try to do our best to motivate them and push them, but really it's got to be internal. They've got to do more than what we're doing at practice, and they've got to not only physically but mentally. That's the step here, and we're trying to push that part with confidence. How can we get more confident in those situations that we really belong in that position of being number one at the end.
Coach, we got a comment here. I want to ask you this. Te Ata Pai, Coach White. You're from New Zealand, right? What does that mean, Coach? Is that Maori? What dialect or language is that?
Yeah, that would be Maori, and I'm not sure what that phrase says, but one that I use a lot with the program and the team is kia kaha, which means be strong. So that's one we use a lot, and we have some symbolisms from New Zealand and the Maori. We read the book Legacy about the All Blacks and their culture and how they turned things around and how everyone was a leader, and the top players in the clubhouse were sweeping the shed, so to speak, and taking care of the small things. And we like to see that within our program as everyone's taking a part, and there's just no leadership or, hey, I'm a senior and you do it. Everyone unpacks the bus, everyone lends a hand. I think that's a good sign of a good culture.
Hey, we have a same question asked twice here in a row. So we're going to ask you this, Coach. How's your freshman from Beaumont, California looking? A couple of people have asked, and kind of what are her expectations this year?
Yeah, that's Cam Salmon. She's going to hit the upper 60s, and she had some growing pains coming in. To tell you the truth, like most of them, they come from the travel ball side where the strike zone's a little bit bigger and the hitters are not quite as good. And there was a little bit of, hey, we're in the big stuff right now. If you make a mistake, you're going to pay for it. So I think she's adjusting really well. She's come back this spring and she's fired up. And of course, we have some depth in our pitching staff with Kavan and Mac Morgan and Sitlali Gutierrez and Sophia Simpson. So there's a lot of help there. And, you know, Tegan Cavan's showing a lot of leadership right now in helping Cam through those growing pains of being a freshman.
Coach, you look at this team, safe to say that College World Series is the goal or one of the goals, but just trying to win a national championship and break through at Texas this year. Is that ultimately what you want to do?
Yeah, it's a stepping stone. Obviously, it's about the process and not the outcome. But obviously, the outcome is our mission is to be the world champion, national collegiate champion in softball, and you know that doesn't change from year to year. That obviously it's difficult. There's a stepping process, like I said, and that's one to get that winning percentage above 50%, and then you know hopefully you know win your conference, and then you know make the postseason, and then regionals and super regionals, being a top 8 seed. That's the goal. And then anything can happen once you get there. And I've always said this, that you can't practice in front of 14,000 fans, not in our game anyway. So, you know, we've been there a couple of times now. We're hoping to use that experience to help push us and get us ready for that next step.
Hey, Coach, last thing I had for you, I like to ask this question to coaches as well. Are there any rule changes, adjustments you'd like to see in your sport? I'm not trying to get you in trouble, put you on the spot, but you know we're always wondering about that in every sport. Is there anything in your sport that you'd like to see, maybe a rule adjustment, rule change within the game?
Yeah, I've been pushing for the double base at first base, and you know, the reason everyone thinks it's like for safety, but and it is a safer base, but there's no history to suggest that it is safer. But for me, it's a really convergence thing. In other words, you know, we're only 60 feet. And so you have to, by the rule says you have to kind of straddle the line and have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But, you know, just about every play that's thrown down to first base, there's some sort of interference by the runner if the ball hits them. So I'd like to see that rule changed. I think baseball's going to it this year, if I'm not mistaken, at the collegiate level. So I'd just like to see us change that rule to just, one, make it a little bit safer, two, make it easier on the players to understand where the baseline is, and then the running lane. I think that's the big thing, the running lane. And then, of course, we've made some changes lately in the pitching rule, which I think is really good. We've allowed the pitcher to disengage from the ground. So in other words, they can kind of leap, and then also the 1 foot back. So I think that we've given a little more power to the pitchers in the last few years, which has been good. But I really want to kind of see that running lane changed. And you know, with that review coming in, we've changed some rules there with the base runner leaving early, and there's some nuances there that have been changed.
Interesting. Good stuff.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. I shortchanged you on the way in. I said you're ranked number 2, and then you were ranked number 1, man. You guys,
You'd probably rather be ranked 2, though.
Would you rather be ranked 2 than 1? Let me ask you that. That's a good closing question, Jerry. Would you rather be ranked 2 than 1, Coach?
The game doesn't know. It's going to be the team that plays the best. So I'm gonna avoid that question right there. And where I want to be ranked number 1 is at the end of the season. That's right. That's where it counts.
There you go, Coach. Congratulations. Good luck this season, man.
Hey, appreciate you guys. Hook 'em.
All right, Hook 'em. Always a pleasure talking to Coach Mike White. He's just turned that softball program around and made it one of the power programs in college softball, period.
Yeah,
year after year.
Ranked now we can say awesome to be ranked number 1. I don't care. It's anytime you're ranked number 1, what it does for you from a recruiting standpoint, doesn't mean you're going to get everybody, but it just does matter. I know the coaches don't like it, but it matters. I mean, it matters when the University of Texas put out ranked number 1 in softball to start the season. I mean, it matters. It helps your program.
Yeah. Well, they've done a great job over there. He continues to do what's right and get the good players to Texas and then coach them up once they get there. Just another one of those programs that Texas has rolling right now in softball, and Coach Mike White. Appreciate him joining us. Blake, what do we got next, man?
Well, actually, I was going to say, in your defense, D1 softball has Texas ranked 2. USA softball has Texas ranked number 1. So technically, you weren't wrong.
Well, Bobby's got
us. I saw them ranked number 2, and we didn't. And I was like, "What the heck?"
Bobby has a subscription to D1 softball. Clearly.
Oh, all right, guys. Well, before we move on, we need to let everyone know about Gooder, Jerry Hamilton, if you're ready to do so.
Man, the snow has melted away. The sun is out. That means the Gooders are going to be on later today. Why Gooder, you ask? Stylish sunnies starting at only $25 a pair. No slip, no bounce, all polarized and definitely all fun. There's a 1-year warranty I have to read. You don't need it, and 30-day free returns. What you don't need that either. There's 3 new high-performance styles that have been flying off the shelves. That is the Bolt G, the Bug G, and the Astro G. High-performance sunglasses designed to make you feel like the best athlete of all time. That's another reason to wear them. You just walk like an athlete. You move like an athlete. All 3 frames have UV 400 polarized lenses. Pro tip, guys. Overpriced sunglasses don't make you run faster. We've all tried it. They just don't work. The Bug G, the aerodynamic wraparound shades for next level performance. If you're a runner, jogger, cyclist, any of that good activity stuff, these buzzworthy active shades have a trendy oval-shaped lenses and come packed with high-performance features. You know what I like about them? They keep the bugs out of your eyes. If you're cycling, right, they keep the bugs from hitting your eyes, man. That's always the worst thing ever. If you have bad glasses on and a bug gets in your eye and your eye's watering and you're trying not to hit the curb when you're cycling 15 miles. And I've been there. It's not fun. If you want to support the show and try a pair, Gooder is giving On Texas Football, all caps, listeners free shipping. You can go to gooder.com/ontexas and use that code ONTEXAS for free shipping. Who doesn't want free shipping? Gooder offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. It's in the read, so I have to read it. You don't need it. And 100% satisfaction. I tried to get them to put 1,000 in, but they wouldn't. Again, that's gooder.com/ontexas. Use that code, all caps, for free shipping.
You just love making people squirm. I think that's your read MO. You like when people squirm a little bit.
Yes. Hey, Blake, did you bring up the Texas ones? Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I see a lot of these at around DKR Bevo on football game days. Bobby, does Jenny have a pair?
I don't know, but she needs a pair.
There you go. Jenny, are you in the chat? Bobby's got an order to put in today.
You're always reaching into my pocket to spend.
Exactly.
It's easy to spend your money.
Yeah. Hey, Colt Monroe, we haven't had a super chat. Get out of first period. Send something in.
No. But I also need to let everyone know about Rocket Money. You sign up for something, you forget about it after the trial period ends. We've all been there. Then you're charged month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're just not using them. Don't worry, you're not alone. I do it. Just about everybody else does it too. In fact, 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going used every month. Thanks to Rocket Money, though, I can see all of my subscriptions in one place. I can cancel the ones I'm not using anymore, and now I'm saving money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. They monitor your spending. They help lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. The subscriptions part is absolutely awesome. It's what I use it for the most. You can see all of them in one place. You know exactly where your money's going. And for the ones that you don't want anymore, Rocket Money will help you cancel them. They have over 5 million users and have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when you use all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions today. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Just go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon, GAMEON.
Hey, Blake, a couple questions for you. One of the things I wanted to mention, we got Jeff Howe coming up, a newcomer to our team here at On Texas Football. He's going to join us at around 8:55 today. Before we got there, I wanted to do this, if you don't mind. I posted a question to the YouTube family here on Texas Football and asked them who was the player of the year for the Longhorns. And I gave 4 choices. There could have been more here, obviously, but this was the actual vote. Jahdae Barron gets the nod over Matthew Golden, Quinn Ewers, and Kelvin Banks. Do y'all agree with that? Y'all agree with that? I will say this.
Yes, I actually do.
Okay. Here's my thought process on it. I had a problem picking one player. And what I mean by that is I couldn't tell you Barron was absolutely it. And usually there's a Bijan Robinson, right? Or somebody that really comes out and is not necessarily the leader of the team, but the guy that is clearly the alpha, right? And while Jahdae Barron was that in some ways, he wasn't the absolute. And so I found it interesting, though, that 51% of the respondents, 3,000 plus votes, went with Jahdae here. You're not surprised by it, though, Jerry?
No, I mean, look, because Jahdae moved to a new position and won the national award. I mean, and he had big plays in big games. Like, and somebody in the chat said Matthew Golden. I think the same. Matthew Golden had huge plays in big games, right? But Jahdae Barron played big every time Texas needed him to play big. And Andrew Makuba is a third guy that would probably be on that list too. But I think Jahdae Barron, because he moved from nickel to corner, and not only did he make the move, he excelled to the point of winning the award, and has a legacy at Texas built through this season after moving positions his final year. So I totally understand why the vote went the way it did.
I understand the reason it went that way. The reason I even asked the question to the group is I didn't know who I would vote for.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like I wanted to know what other people genuinely thought, because I was having like, who is the MVP of the 2024 Texas football team?
Yeah.
I mean, who? I don't know.
So I'm gonna throw a question out to the chat. Who's gonna win this next year? Who's gonna win this poll next year?
Tough one.
I think Colin Simmons may be the best defensive player in America next year, by the way. If he stays healthy and keeps going. If he has another clean season like this year.
If you want 10 wins next year, maybe Arch Manning needs to be the answer. No. I mean, because ultimately, look, you win that, you're the best player and you're the quarterback, your team's done really, really well. So I don't know. Well, we'll see. That's something to think about, right, Jerry? Is even though they had such a good year, who was the MVP for the Longhorns? And there have been years where that answer has been obvious. I don't know. I don't know. Good stuff. Something to think about.
All right, guys, we got some super chats here that we need to get to. Trace Little. Thank you, Trace. Good morning. Back after a week and a half of vacation in Ireland. Hook 'em.
Did you play golf? Did you play golf when you were there?
It's got to be like 0 degrees up there, right?
You love golf there, and you love that golf.
Hope you had a fun trip, Trace. And then Jason says, Ojo said Texas told him that he's their top priority O-lineman. Just a recruiting pitch, or does Flood like Ojo more than Turntime?
Turntime's the number one lineman on the board.
Yeah. I think that he is a priority, though. I mean, you can look, coaches can mince words, right, Jerry? We know that, I mean, we all know that. Let's see how it happens and how it goes from there. But I would tell you this from watching Felix Ojo, Texas and from evaluating the Texas roster, Jerry, Texas needs 2 tackles in this class.
Yeah.
Because they didn't necessarily get one last year. They may have gotten one last year in the 2025 recruiting class. They need 2 tackles in the 2026 recruiting class.
Yeah, the whole key there is going to be every kid wants to play left tackle unless they're a natural right tackle. Like Brandon Baker coming out of high school played right tackle. The kid Texas just offered at Mater Dei, also Cody Green, with the Oregon commitment, plays right tackle. Everybody else Texas is recruiting plays left tackle. So which of those guys, and this factors into these recruiting races, which of those guys, if approached by Kyle Flood, would play right tackle? And if they are not, then none of these guys aren't going to the same school. I mean, look, Lamont Rogers and Fasusi weren't going to the same school last year.
Yeah.
Because they both wanted to play left tackle. And Turntime, Ojo, even Max Wright at Melissa all play left tackle. Who's open to playing right tackle? That's going to be pretty decisive in the way that some of these recruitments play out for Texas, in my opinion.
And then we got a super chat here from Seth. Seth, and thank you, Seth. When Coach White first came to Texas, I was overly critical of him. He is exactly who this program needed when it was in a terrible place. He's continuously improved his staff, his roster, and he has grown. You are the guy, Coach. I don't think anybody can argue with that.
No. Look, if you listed the top 5 softball coaches in the college game, he's going to be in that group. I don't think there's any doubt. And by the way, this question I want to answer from Dave H. real quick. How does Isaiah Williams stack up with Webb and Bradshaw on the safety board? Isaiah Williams scheduled to be at Texas Junior Day Saturday, which is coming up, obviously, in just a couple of days. Isaiah Williams, he's in Fort Bend Marshall, really talented player, teammates with Caleb Chester, good friends with Caleb Chester. Caleb and him went to a couple of Texas games this year. His whole thing is he's got to stay healthy. He's just been a little nicked up, played closer to the line of scrimmage this year. Really good prospect. A kid that the first time I saw him in high school, I just physically, you just watched the way he moved, his build, his frame. You said, look, that's what Alabama and Georgia have been recruiting for a decade, right? He is that level talent, but he's kind of got to stay healthy a little bit, a little bit more consistently, because I think when some coaches have gone to see him, he's been out. He missed a little time this year. So really talented player, though. Really talented player, but he will be in Austin Saturday, scheduled to be.
There you go. All right, Jerry, I think our second special guest of the day is here. Bobby had to drop for a minute. He'll be back here shortly, but I'm going to bring him in. Jeff Howe, how's it going, man?
Oh, man, there's nothing special about me, Blake. Just happy to be here. Had a great live stream with CJ and Rod last night. So it's Jerry, it reminds me of the old days when it was just talking ball and having fun, and that's what I'm all about at this point.
Well, Jeff, you just led me into my next ad read because I've got to welcome you to On Texas Football, and we're going to be talking balls right now. Have you ever heard of Mando? Here's the thing. What do you love about Mando? It's the best deodorant on the market, guys. Whole body deodorant, safe to use anywhere on your body, Jeff Howe. The pits, the balls, the thigh folds, the belly button, your butt crack, and your feet. Created by a doctor who first saw how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. This is clinically proven to block odor all day and control up to 72 hours. Who doesn't want that? There's a solid deodorant stick. There's a spray deodorant that's aluminum free and ideal for all of our hard to reach places. All products are baking soda free and paraben free. Choose from the fresh scents like bourbon leather. That's Bobby's favorite, Jeff. Clover Woods. I'm giving you Clover Woods. Blake is Mount Fuji, and I'm Pro Sport because I like to think I'm an athlete. Clinically proven to control odor better than shower with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower. Jeff, this is huge. The average man's Grundle odor level is a 5 out of 10. With Mando, your average Grundle odor is 0 out of 10. Want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now? You can find them in Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country. Shop Mando.com. Use On Texas for $5 off your starter kit. Welcome to On Texas Football, Jeff.
I'm grundled to be here.
You should be.
You want your Grundle level to be 0, though, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll work on keeping the Grundle down with my A1Cs and everything else. I'll make sure to run that by the doc next time I'm in.
Hey, Jeff, welcome to On Texas Football, first of all. So happy to have you. Jerry and I and Rod and Blake and everybody, CJ, just so happy to have another team member to share with. Bob Shipley he's gonna teach us some things, he says, so we'll have to talk about that. But hey, I got to ask you, we were just having a conversation and go back to this a little bit. You and Rod were talking and CJ last night. Jerry and I and Blake were talking this morning. Who was the MVP of Texas football in 2024? Who was it? We put up the chat kind of voted on it and had Jahdae Barron. But who was your MVP of Texas football in 2024? Because I just don't know if I had an answer.
Yeah, I don't. I think that speaks to this team. I don't think there are a lot of bad answers. It's hard to argue with Jahdae Barron. I would go, if I'm thinking about the offense, I would go Gunnar Helm just because I didn't see him being a 40, 50 catch guy going into the year. Plus, with as much split flow as they do on offense with their zone running game, that tight end is such a huge piece of that, sealing off the backside. And I mean, Sark has mentioned this too, as much outside zone as they run, he's a really good C gap and out blocker. So, and I know nobody's thrilled with kind of that feast or famine nature of the run game, but I think we saw with Gunnar Helm, and hopefully with the Nick Townsend, and as Sark continues and Jeff Banks, they continue to up the ante recruiting tight ends. I think Gunnar Helm really gave you the blueprint of, all right, here's what a 5-tool, well-rounded tight end can do in this offense. Yes, you'll block. Yes, you'll do the dirty work, but you can be a 40, 50 catch guy and up your NFL stock playing in this offense. You know, defensively, as far as an MVP goes, I kind of go like unsung hero. And I think, okay, like who's the guy that, like, if you took him out of that mix, if you pulled him out of the defense, how different would that defense be? And as good as Jahdae Barron was, man, I keep going back to Anthony Hill and just a sideline to sideline playmaker. If you pulled him out of the defense, how different would that thing be? It created a huge hole in the drop off from him to a young Ty Anthony Smith or a David Benda. It's a lot deeper than the drop off from, let's say, Barron Sorrell to Ethan Burke or Trey Moore to Colin Simmons. So I would, on one side of the ball or the other, I would say Gunnar Helm on offense, Anthony Hill on defense.
And you know what Anthony Hill helps you with too is when you deal with quick quarterbacks that can escape the pocket.
100%.
I mean, you stick him on that in that regard, and then you pretty much eliminate that problem. I'm not now. Sam Levitt was different; he gave everybody a problem, right? But he did a lot of his behind the line of scrimmage, not necessarily going forward. It's a good point there, Jeff. I'm not so sure, and I thought about this, and just not so sure that the player of the year for 2024 wasn't an actual coach, and that's Steve Sarkisian, because he didn't have, other than Colin Simmons and maybe a group of DBs and Barron, Taff, and Makuba, he put it all together.
Yeah,
I really think he put it all together, and so kudos to the Texas head coach for ended up 13-3 in the college football semifinal. But
what it makes me go ahead, Jerry. Sorry.
If we're talking coaches, I think Johnny Nanson's addition was massive for this Texas defense. Jeff, I don't know what you think.
No, I would agree 100%, and not just as a position coach, but I think you look at PK kind of changing philosophy, going from middle field open, playing some more too high, which is pretty much what he's done almost exclusively, to playing middle field close with a post safety. A lot of that was Johnny Nansen influence. And PK said, it happened at the right time because losing Sweat and Murphy, they really didn't know what they were going to get out of their defensive tackle room. I mean, they figured, they knew Collins and Broughton were good players. Just, are you going to get that consistently, and are they going to have the kind of impact that Murphy and Sweat did? Well, they were pretty dang good, but I think Johnny Nansen bringing in some schematic changes, this defense schematically evolved the way it needed to, right when it needed. The timing couldn't have been better. I agree with you on that front, Jerry.
Jeff, anything? You've got articles coming up on Texas football. You're going to join us not just on the video component, but also the website as well. We've got a special offer right now to folks. The special discount code for an annual subscription is none other than Howe, HOWE, for $39.95 for an annual subscription. It's the best deal out there on the market. But just use Howe for $39.95 on TexasFootball.com. What do you got coming for us today? What you writing about today, Jeff?
There was people in the live stream last night who said if you want a free lifetime sub, your promo code is Jerry is a traitor. I don't know what that's all about. that was getting thrown out last night. Today, Bobby, I'm gonna riff on some of the stuff that CJ Rod and I talked about last night, mainly the NFL draft, because I think back to Justin Blaylock and Nathan Vasher when they were drafted, and I feel like scouts, front office people really just overthought it with them. A couple guys that played a decade plus in the NFL. I think the same thing's going to happen with Kelvin Banks and Jahdae Barron. I think scouts are really going to overthink it, and you're going to look up and like, wow, those guys played 10, 12 years and went to a couple Pro Bowls and made some all-pro teams. And whether it's height or speed or whatever it is with either of those guys, I think they're two really good pros coming out of this class that NFL people, as they tend to do. Jerry, you and I talked about it years ago. These guys have unlimited resources, and they still continually screw it up. And I think there's going to be franchises that miss the boat with both these guys.
It's a business of they're looking for warts.
Yes.
and they're digging for a wart. And like, remember when Derek Johnson came out, he wasn't physical enough. That's like saying Kevin Durant couldn't bench 185 pounds. Okay. I mean, how dumb does this stuff sound sometimes? And look, it's a hard job, and I get it, but Derek Johnson wasn't physical enough. Why? Because he played around blocks because nobody could block him.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean he's not a physical player. So they're looking for warts, to your point. And if you look enough, Bobby, Jeff, you're going to find something.
Yeah. It's the great thing about Derek Johnson is he kind of survived long enough to where the game evolved to where it fit his skill set perfectly.
Yeah.
As the NFL became more of a space and pace game, now Derek Johnson, instead of being a quote unquote liability as a 3-down linebacker, now he's going to Pro Bowls and making all pro teams and being the franchise's all-time leading tackler with the Chiefs. So yeah, it's weird how the game evolves. But yeah, I remember I was pretty close to Deontay Foreman when he was going through his draft process back in 2017. And I remember his agents telling him, he said, the toughest thing I had to realize was when my agents told me, this is a round of interviews where teams are looking for a reason not to invest millions of dollars in you. They're looking for a reason not to draft you. And that completely flipped his thought process on the draft. And I think the sooner guys realize that when they go through the combine and things like that, the better off they'll be understanding just kind of what that process is like and why it is the way it is.
When you mentioned Kelvin Banks, he's a projected top 10, top 15 pick. The latest one from, I think it was Mel Kiper, had him at 11. Mm-hmm. You see him not necessarily sliding out of the first round. You're just talking about he's not going to go top 10 or top 5, maybe even where he could, because he's going to show up and be 6'3" and 5/8 or 6'4" and a quarter and not be this 6'6" prototypical left tackle everybody's looking for. It has nothing to do with his actually playability. It's the underwear Olympics, so to speak.
The one thing people forget, Bobby, and I think when you look at Texas, I feel like the Tom Herman staff at one point got away from this. You can get so caught up in measurables and projectables and body types that you forget, you lose sight. Hey, what does the tape say? What is this guy put? What does his resume over 3 years say? And CJ brought up the number. I didn't realize it was this many. You know, Kelvin Banks played against 11 first-round draft picks in 3 years. And his freshman year, Bobby, you've seen more Texas freshman offensive linemen than I have. I can't remember a freshman year for a Texas offensive lineman that was better. When you think about game 2, you're going one-on-one with Will Anderson. You've got Felix Anduke-Uzomah, Tyree Wilson, Will McDonald. I don't think he gave up a sack all year going against 4 guys that were picked in the first round of that next draft.
No, I cannot remember a true freshman offensive lineman. There have been some redshirt freshmen, but he was so ready to go so soon. It was just odd. I mean, just completely odd. And to your point, he's battle tested. That's the other thing about this Texas team now. If you're an NFL draft guy, look who they're playing. Jerry talks about this all the time. The offensive guys, how many, whether it's Matthew Golden or Kelvin Banks or Quinn Ewers, whoever you got on offense, they're playing NFL caliber players now, and they're 13-3 and been to back-to-back national semifinals. They're not just winning, they're not just playing against these guys, they're succeeding. They're winning their fair share of battles, if not more. And so I agree with you, Jeff, overall. Players that play through contact, you can't measure that with a tape measure or with a how much a person weighs. Playing through contact, playing athletically and with speed is you can't measure it.
I got that brought up a question. Somebody said and made a comment in the chat, and I'm going to pose this question to you guys. And I think most people are going to say Kelvin Banks, and I would understand the answer because he started every game. Is Kelvin Banks or Colin Simmons the best true freshman in the Sark era?
Wow.
Because see, it's different. Like you said, Kelvin Banks had the start for that Texas team. If 3 years ago, Colin Simmons plays more snaps at Texas this year. But I think it helped this season not having to play as many snaps before he was probably physically all the way where he needs to be. But you're recruiting at a high level when I asked that question.
Yeah, I would say Simmons, Jerry, because that edge room was much harder to break through for Simmons than the offensive line room was for Kelvin Banks to break through. I mean, you think about it, like Ethan Burke's a really good player. Trey Moore's a really good player. And for Colin Simmons to just gradually get more and more reps, even Anthony Hill the year before, I mean, it was pretty clear. It took you pretty much after the Alabama game, you figured, all right, it's not a matter of if, it's when he's going to take over for David Benda and be a full-time starter at linebacker. With Simmons, it's just like, okay, there's just experienced, talented guys in front of him, but he's still pushing his way onto the field. Yeah,
and somebody brought up Xavier Worthy. He'd be the third guy in that conversation of the best true freshmen, the guys that were the most impressive true freshmen Sark's recruited.
I think Anthony Hill's in that mix too.
Probably number 4.
I mean, there's been one every year in that regard. I'm going to be a little bit different. I think it's easier to be impactful as a true freshman at edge than it is at offensive tackle. So I would go. I know this sounds crazy, but and Simmons won the National Freshman of the Year award. So I get that it's. I just think that it's so rare for someone to come in as a true freshman and start at left tackle and be really, really good. He wasn't just a replacement level player. He was good.
Yeah.
And so I think it's easier for defensive guys to do that. So I would probably go with Banks a little bit over Simmons in that regard.
It makes you appreciate Kelvin when you think about, he got there. I think that's what people forget about him. He wasn't a mid-year guy.
That's the thing.
He didn't get there till the summer.
Right.
And he had a little bit. It's like, okay, this guy's kind of proven himself. He deserves to be there. You guys remember, I was thinking about this the other day, go back to 2015 and, Patrick Vahe and Connor Williams having to start right out of the gate because they had nobody else. Like there was nobody else. It's like, oh, hey guys, by the way, your first start, it's not against like Louisiana Monroe. We're going to South Bend lining up against the top 10 Notre Dame team. Like best of luck, so it's changed a little bit. The depth in the offensive line room is different. So there's I guess a little bit tougher haul for Kelvin Banks to get up there, but yeah, I no question, Bobby, it's, and I've always thought this about linemen, Jerry, this is the first time those guys, I always wonder about how big kids are going to adjust because this is the first time you're going against other big kids.
Yeah.
I mean, for Kelvin Banks, he might have seen a guy with, let's say Ethan Burke's body profile or Trey Moore's body profile. You may see a guy like that in maybe a district game, maybe a couple playoff games. You're facing that guy every day.
Yes.
So it's a different world, and some kids adjust to it really well. Some kids it takes a little longer. So the fact that he adjusted to it real quick. I don't know if you guys remember. I'm sure you remember, but when we saw the Alabama game, but I remember they had a play in the OU game down around the goal line where he takes this guy and buries him like 10 yards down the field. And I'm like, for this kid in that game to understand the play to the echo of the whistle mentality, I'm like, this kid gets it. Like, that's when I knew, like, he's talented. He's good, but he gets it. He understands what this is all about. It was that OU game at 49.
Jeff, that was Nick Saban's whole recruiting pitch to the kids his last decade at Alabama. When he had to figure out, how do I keep getting top guys? And then and it's different from Banks, but to your point, Trevor Goosby's mentioned this. Going against Colin Simmons, every rep in practice has helped him as a pass protector, and he wasn't a starter. So that was Nick Saban's recruiting pitch for the last decade he was at Alabama. Look, you may not come in and start as a freshman on our teams. We're competing for the national title, but every single day you're going up against a first or second round pick in practice. And I promise you, I will get you to the NFL because of it. I'll develop you and you'll get to the NFL because of it. That's the area we're kind of starting to enter with Sark and what they're going to be able to recruit to at Texas.
Yeah. I know that's Kirby's recruiting pitch at Georgia because I talked to Michael Williams about that at SEC Media Days and Malachi Starks. And both those guys, Jerry, they said, hey, we had all kinds of people telling us, don't go to Georgia. You're not going to play for 2 or 3 years. You're going to be behind NFL players. And Kirby's approach, he flipped it, and it was the opposite. Like you just said, hey, yeah, but you're going to be going against NFL guys in practice. By the time you're ready to play, It's not going to be that learning curve other guys have. Like, you're going to be ready to step into the SEC and be a dude the minute you step on the field, the minute you're ready to play a lot of snaps. So yeah, I agree. It's first world problems, Jerry. In Texas, the way Sark is recruiting, the way they're developing, they're venturing into that world of having first world problems, which is great to have. It's an awesome problem to have. That's why I really think we're about to hit maybe the most competitive spring any of us have ever seen, or that we've seen in a really long time, because you look at the number of jobs that are open, the number of unproven guys, inexperienced guys, but really talented guys. Every position room is going to have elite level competition. There's going to be some really dang good players that end up in the transfer portal after spring ball, because they're going to see the writing on the wall. If I want to play, it's not going to be at Texas. So it's when we start getting those scrimmage reports, there's going to be some guys emerge. It's like, hey, there's a couple of guys that could be like, all SEC caliber guys that we just haven't seen play yet.
Yeah. Hey, and that leads into this question too. Who's that freshman this year for the Texas team? Of the kids coming in, Jeff, I've never asked you this question. Bobby and I have talked about it. It's getting tougher to be that guy because of the talent level Texas has, but also last year it was Colin Simmons, an elite special edge rush guy that could bring. Is it Jamie French at wide receiver? Who could be that guy? I would have said, here's who my guy would have been. To go with Jordan Washington, it would have been Nick Townsend if he was a midterm enrollee, because I think he's special, but he's not. So that may set him back. You saw Justice Terry recently. Yeah. What do you think of Justice in person?
I'm not going to say he's Myles Garrett, because Myles Garrett had such a presence about him as a high school kid. Jerry, I remember going to Arlington Martin one day. It was a day kind of like today. I mean, it's like low 30s, and Myles Garrett is by himself doing sprint work out on the field, shirtless. And I'm like, this dude looks like an NFL draft pick, like right now as a 17-year-old. Like it was freaky how well he was put together. But, that kind of presence that when the guy walks into the room, you're like, oh, that's a dude right there. Yeah. This cat can play. That's the kind of feeling I got when Justice Terry walked by me at the Cotton Bowl on the sideline. I'm like, this is a dude right here. Like I've never seen a snap of his in person, but you can just tell he's got that presence about him. So I would say Justice Terry. I think one of the wide receivers has a chance, but I'm going to reserve the right to pick James Simon, because the running back position, you typically find out really early if guys can play. And I remember Casey Studdard telling me one time, it was that 2014 year. If you remember, Deontay Foreman guys came in late because he had some academic issues. So he missed like the first week and a half of camp. And I remember Casey Studdard coming to sit down with Rod and I to do some audio stuff. He's like, hey, who's 33? And I'm like, oh, that's Deontay Foreman. He's like, yeah, he's the best running back on the roster. I'm like, how can you tell? He's like, you can just tell. He's like, you go out to practice. I'm like, he's the best guy out there. And lo and behold, he ends up, being a 2,000-yard rusher and the Doak Walker Award winner a couple of years later. So you can tell pretty early. So I wouldn't be shocked, especially, Jarrett Gibson's ball security issues. And, if I was CJ Baxter, I would want to tread lightly getting back this spring, especially with as many guys are going to be able to prove something. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if we heard about James Simon doing some things this spring.
I'm same place you are, Jeff, with him, because his dad was a 15-year college coach. We've had him on this show a couple of times. His dad was a tremendous running back / receiver at La Tech, played briefly in the NFL. He's going to come in ahead of the game from pass protection, route running. He's going to come in ahead of the game. And those guys that come in ahead of the game, especially to your point, CJ Baxter out this spring, Christian Clark out this spring, Jaden Blue's gone to the NFL. That dude's rolling into third-team reps.
Yeah.
I mean, he's rolling into third-team reps the first day of spring practice, essentially. So he's gonna have an opportunity.
And maybe second, because as long of a year as he had, Trey Wisner might need to spend some spring in Epsom salt baths just to get some muscle recovery after going through the meat grinder.
Yeah, you'll get to meet the Wisners. They're on the chats all the time. So yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, Jeff, that's such a great point, because I guarantee you, of all the people going into the season that thought that they may need to be in Epsom salt baths at the end of it, Trey Wisner was not that guy that expected to be RB1 rushing for 1,000 yards. Y'all talk about MVPs. Hey, that might be the unsung hero of the offense in 2024.
If you would have told me, hey, Trey Weiser's going to tote the rock 33 times against A&M, carry them to that win, I'd have been like, you go to Vegas if you feel that strongly about it, and I'd have been dead wrong. So, props to him, man. Dude was a warrior in College Station that night.
I had a couple of comments about y'all's conversation just now. I wrote down as y'all had that the recruiting pitch. You know, that was the whole iron sharpens iron.
Yep,
is what Nick Saban used to say, and that's how they all got going. The other thing I would add is we talk about how Texas and Sark is up the ante. Y'all mentioned Xavier Worthy, first round pick, right? Is Sark's first year. Kelvin Banks the next year. Anthony Hill the year after that. Colin Simmons after that. That's 4 in a row. There's going to be a fifth.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be. We don't know who it is. Maybe your comparison of him to Myles Garrett though just made me kind of little tingle go down my spine. I'm gonna be honest. I was like, whoa, that's a big comparison there. But all in all, Texas right now, just we'll see what happens in spring training. I think that you're right, Jeff, in that it be highly, highly competitive because there are so many jobs available.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, there's 4 or 5 on the offensive line. There's at least 1 at wide receiver. There's who knows what's going to happen at running back with Cedric Baxter still out. I mean, you'd think Trey Wisner's the guy, but other guys going to have a chance. A lot of stuff going on right now with Texas.
I mean, other than off-ball linebacker, Bobby and edge, I mean, those 2 positions are pretty much set. Even safety. I mean, even Michael Taft coming back, Derek Williams won't be ready for spring ball.
No.
So
Jelani McDonald's there though. Jelani McDonald, people forget.
And the question is Jelani going to be a full-time nickel next year?
We had that conversation last night, Jerry, and thinking back to this time last year, and me thinking, hey, Jalen Gilbo's the X factor. If he can fill that nickel role, then yes, you can move Jade to corner or move him wherever you want. Is there that guy at nickel? Is it a big nickel like Jelani McDonald? Do they want the corner type? Is it more of a JJR type guy? Does Warren Roberson get a look at the nickel? I do like the fact, though, that in that secondary room with Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon, that they're openly admitting now that, yeah, we're cross-training guys at multiple positions, which I don't understand why that didn't happen earlier, why that hasn't happened in previous years. Because, Jerry, I was shouting from the rooftops, man, the way his body profile, if Deshaun Jameson had played some safety, he might have been drafted. Like, just his nose for the ball, his instincts. I always say, man, if this dude was a middle field safety, I'm not saying he'd be Bob Sanders or Earl Thomas, but I always wondered kind of what it would look like. Now you at least you're getting to see that on the practice field, at least the staff is.
Hey, and to the point on Jelani McDonald, too, one of the interesting things that's going to come out of spring practice, I think for all of us covering this, is the only way Texas can flirt with Jelani McDonald maybe being a full-time nickel. One is if Jalen Gilbo moves out the corner. But 2, maybe more importantly than that, is if the young safeties, Jordan Johnson-Rubel, to your point, Derek Williams isn't going to be there.
Yeah.
Jordan Johnson-Rubel, Xavier Filsami, if one of those 2 guys really takes a huge step this spring, then it opens up the versatility thoughts with Jelani McDonald. I think that's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out this spring at DB.
Yeah, I'm just glad Jelani has a home, Jerry, because we've seen it. I mean, the tragic cases that I think of is a guy like Drew Kelson, where it's like, oh, let's move him here, and then you realize, oh, he's out of eligibility. Like, do we really get the most out of him? And with those big athletes, it's fun to think big picture, but you can also miss the boat on those guys. So I'm glad they found a home for him and they've got a role for him and that he's growing into.
PK has done a tremendous job of developing players.
Yeah.
You can say what you want. He did not have the talent or the personnel his first year. Every year since, that defense has improved. And it's like we said at the very outset of our conversation this morning on Coffee and Football. The first 3 years, I felt like the Texas defense allowed people to take from them. And now that they've developed a pass rush, all of a sudden that zone that they played behind to not get beat deep, all of a sudden it felt very aggressive.
Yeah.
Like the tables turned in a single year when you get a pass rush. They've just done a nice job on the side of the ball of bringing guys along. Jalen Gilbo, whether or not he's able to play corner this year, may give him a chance. Kobe Black, how he comes on. Wardell Mack is another guy that we haven't mentioned. Santana Wilson.
Yep.
Jerry's heard good things behind the scenes. It's going to be a big spring training because Texas has quality competition. To your point, Jeff, that it's not just, this guy is definitely going to win this job.
Mm-hmm.
It's who's going to win this job.
Yeah,
and we may have some thoughts, but we don't have any definitive answer. Yeah,
I'm not saying he's an answer, Bobby, but Wardell Mack is a guy that kind of reminds me back to a bygone era where Dwayne Aquina used to do this all the time, whether it was Adrian Phillips or Quandre Diggs. Texas used to always, and Dwayne Aquina made a living off taking guys that were high school quarterbacks because the way they can see the field, putting them in the secondary, and those guys would end up being all conference players. They're all pros. They're pro bowlers. So I think Wardell Mack, just because I want to see kind of that old school transition of a guy that did a little bit of everything in high school. Now he's focused in on one position group, how he sees the field, his feel for the game. I mean, that toe tap interception he made in the Colorado State game, it feels like it was 6 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
but, that was one of the best plays a freshman made all year. So Wardell Mack's a guy that I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying he's going to be an answer. He's on the periphery for me, though.
Well, and I think it's a good point. Here's the thing on Wardell Mack, to your point, Jeff, is it's similar to Jelani, is guys that play jack of all trades in high school. He played a lot of wide receiver. He played some corner. He played some safety. And whatever he had to do to help John Ehret High win games down in Marrero near New Orleans, he did. So coming to college is the first time he ever really fixated and trained on one position.
Yeah.
Similar to Ty Anthony Smith. And Ty Anthony Smith, when I saw him, he would play wildcat quarterback. He'd play receiver. He'd line up at safety. He'd play linebacker. Oh, he could even come off the edge. So those guys don't fixate on one position until they get to college. And a lot of times those guys ascend in a big way because there's so much upside, Bobby, that when they lock into one position, that, man, they have an ascension once they hit that physical ascension to go with it. Wardell Mack's going to be interesting in that regard because I saw him twice, and I never saw him spend much time at all playing defensive back in practice.
Here's what I would say. You mentioned Adrian Phillips. And Adrian, I've always wanted to make this comparison. Adrian Phillips reminds me of a player on this past Texas team, and it's not a defensive back. It's a defensive end. He reminds me of Barron Sorrell.
Yeah.
Every year, the dude got better. Every single year I saw him, you went from Adrian Phillips as a true freshman, did not know what he was doing in the secondary.
Yeah.
Just really raw. But then you saw him build his body and build his body and build his body. And all of a sudden, year 4 comes around. And now he's been, how long has he been in the NFL? In what, 10
years?
But my point being, that's the blueprint for Wardell Mack. He has to change his body type because his body was not ready this year to be a factor. If he can take that from the Adrian Phillips and the Barron Sorrells of the world and take that to real and put it into practice, then we're going to get somebody, to your point, Jeff, that I think equates to real success in the secondary.
Yeah,
because he does have that. You can tell he kind of understands what people are trying to do to him, and that's so much about the secondary.
Yeah, the other thing about AP, Bobby, that stands out to me, you think of all the great defensive backs Dwayne Aquina coached when he was at Texas, and he said Adrian Phillips was the only guy he ever had that could play all 6 positions. Field corner, boundary corner, field safety, boundary safety, nickel, dime. Was the only guy smart enough, talented enough, instinctive enough to play all 6. That's that, and the fact that Bill Belichick brought that guy back twice to the Patriots. I think that tells you all you need to know. If you know nothing else about Adrian Phillips, that tell you all you need to know.
Great point. That's a great point, Jeff. I mean, that's a great point. Hey, we had a question here too, because I wanted to ask you. You saw you were on the field at Cotton Bowl. Lance Jackson, physically, how did he compare? Like, Justice Terry's probably physically more developed than Lance Jackson, but you saw Lance Jackson. You also saw Cole Brevard, right? I mean, And you saw Michael Terry, I assume, as well.
Yep.
Kind of what were some of your initial just on the hoof thoughts on those guys?
Cole Brevard was interesting because, I think Purdue listed him at 6'3", 333.
Yeah, no chance.
The 6'3" is a little generous, and I think the 333 is a little generous too. He filled that number 90 out very well. I'll say that. So he's not going to come to Texas to be a guy that's going to two gap a lot or whatever. He's going to be a run stuffer. He's not going to look to provide you a pass rush. He's going to be Anthony Hill's best friend. Is what Cole Brevard is going to be. Lance Jackson, another guy, Jerry, I like the multi-sport guys because, again, kind of what you talked about, position flex, and then a guy focusing all that energy on one position. I like the multi-sport guys, especially the multi-sport guys that are successful that now you're channeling all that focus onto one sport.
Yes.
And how can you grow into that? So Lance Jackson, being a baseball player too, the frame was really, really good. And I think he could be, if you were running an odd front defense and recruiting, 5 tech defensive ends, he would be at the top of your board. No question. I think it just depends on where his body goes and does he maintain the athleticism. And Michael Terry, I'll give you my comp for Michael Terry. And this is a guy that I remember telling the Texas staff about, and they're like, we don't know. And he ended up producing some really good games against Texas. I think back to like a guy like Demetri Flowers at Oklahoma, another San Antonio area kid.
Yeah.
I think Michael Terry is a souped up, better version of Demetri Flowers. A guy
does he have that sort of, is he that sort of, that's the question I asked CJ because he went down and saw him a couple times. Is he have that kind of hard-nosed mentality that Demetri Flowers had? That's my only question about Michael Terry, not the athleticism. Is he that sort of hard-nosed? Because I haven't seen him in person, Jeff.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I don't know. And at Alamo Heights, you're not playing against the greatest competition week in and week out. But Jerry, that was a guy. I think we're still working together at that point. I love Demetri Flowers.
Oh yeah,
when he was at Churchill, and I remember telling the Texas staff about him because at the time they won, like, hey, we want an H-back. And I'm like, there's a really damn good H-back about 90 minutes down the road. And they didn't recruit him and he ended up, again, having a really good career at OU. Trey Millard was kind of the same way. But if he's got that, Bobby, I think you're getting a better version of those guys at Texas.
No, I totally agree. And look, I think the Alamo Heights staff, when I went through there, I sat down with Coach Ritteman. They swear he's got that physicality. Obviously, all this stuff has to translate to SEC physicality. That's what I always say, right? I mean, the first time that you get hit in the mouth by an SEC level defensive player, what's your response? Like with Nick Townsend, I have zero doubts. Like Nick Townsend's going to get up and smile, and then he's going to hit you just as hard the next play, right? That's just his mentality. He's going to do it with a towel that looks like a wedding veil, by the way. If Michael Terry answers that bell, then I'm just here to tell people, you talk about having Michael Terry, a jack of all trades, a movable little chess piece there that's going to be 6'2", 235 in time, I think maybe 240, and Nick Townsend, you have some real versatility with a lot of speed. Both those guys broke 11 flat, fully automatic time in the 100 last year, and they're both going to be 200. I think Terry, it's going to be hard for Terry not to weigh 230 pounds with that frame because he's almost 6'3" now. But you're talking about a couple of guys that could be 6'3", 240, in the case of Townsend, 250, that are going to run in the 4.5s. That's a different type of weapon offensively.
All right, guys. Jeff, before we let you go, I got to read the super chat to you from Pinkerton's Barbecue. Thank you, Grant. He says, Great to have Jeff on here. A solid addition.
Grant, I got your message. Thank you very much. I need to go down. The San Antonio location is too close to me for me to not be there at least once a month. So I need to make my way down there.
Jeff will go do a live stream with Demetri Flowers there.
Actually, you know what, Jerry? Demetri Flowers is in law school now. He's going to be a lawyer. So, yeah.
There you go.
And then one other one here, real quick. It's 420 somewhere. Thank you for the super chat as well. Welcome, Jeff and Hook'em. If Ty Anthony Smith develops and LaFau gets even better, it's going to be huge. You can unleash Hill from all over the field and keep the offense guessing, trying to find him.
Dude, if you could have Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons going after the quarterback from the edge on a daily basis, on a down-by-down basis, that's Jalen Walker and Michael Williams, baby.
Yeah.
That's what that looks like.
If you want to be.
Yeah, Bobby, I was thinking about what you said about pass rush and how PK's defense has evolved as he's gotten a better pass rush. As much as I love Will Muschamp, it may be easier for me to call coverages if I've got Henry Melton and Brian Arakpo and Sergio Kendall and Sam Acho and Alex Okafor and the high draft pick pass rushers that were coming through this place at that time. It makes you a better defensive coordinator when you got dudes that can win up front consistently.
Lamar Houston.
Yeah.
Hey, and by the way, what we haven't talked about, I'm sure you saw Brad Spence too, Jeff. The addition of Brad Spence is going to give Nansen and PK even more versatility because they can spin Anthony Hill down to that more often and still have a bigger linebacker on the field than Brad Spence. I think Texas, last thing before we let you go, we know you got to go. I think Texas is going to be able to rush the passer from more positions this next year than at any time I've ever seen at Texas.
Yes.
Jelani McDonald from the nickel spot, if you want to. I mean, Anthony Smith is going to be a dart blitzing up the middle in year 2 at 230 pounds. But that Brad Spence addition, where it's going to be underrated, is you can move Anthony Hill outside and not lose the size at linebacker.
100%. And what you're gonna miss. We'll see how good of a blitzer, if it's Kobe Black, that corner that can blitz from the boundary, because PK loves bringing the corner blitz from the boundary. But yeah, I'll sacrifice that if you're telling me, hey, you can blitz from pretty much any other spot on the field, which, yeah, I agree 100% they'll be able to do. That's why, pursuing AJ Tuatelli, that's why I don't mind them going after a high school linebacker at this point, because Brad Spence, that fills that David Bender role, a little bit different player, but at least a guy that you trust to have on the field that can do multiple things for you, that can free you up to use Anthony Hill however you want him. You filled that role. Now go get you a guy that, maybe he's a developmental guy. Maybe he plays some teams year 1, whatever. But yeah, that I love that. Of all the portal ads they got, I know you need the 2 defensive linemen. The Brad Spence edition is huge. I don't think it gets enough credit. We talk about it enough.
Andrew Makuba didn't get a lot of plaudits last year either.
True.
You look at the end of the day and what they got out of Andrew Makuba, and that secondary is not as good. I mean, it's that good stuff, Jeff. We appreciate you so much, dude. Thank you for stopping by. We'll have you on again. I think you're going to be back on tomorrow. You're going to be moving around. We got stuff we got to plan. This all came together, by the way, very, very quickly with us and Jeff. So we don't have everything lined out. We know that he's going to be contributing to the website as well as here on Texas Football. We're going to get him some regular segments so that you guys know when he's going to be on and where he's going to be on and who he's going to be on with. So please stop back by On Texas Football and also come over to ontexasfootball.com. Remember, we have a special right now. Use code Howe, Howe, for $39.95 for 1 year of ontexasfootball.com. Jeff, I did that promo code just for you, bud.
Thank you, Bobby.
You're the first person that has ever had their last name as a promo code that I'm aware of in this industry.
My last name has never been a promo code, so it was a first time for everything. So I appreciate that.
All right, buddy. You be good, man. Take care of yourself.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Take care. Good stuff. Always just a good guy, man. He's been a good guy for so long. Deserves everything that's coming to him, and he will be great here with us at On Texas Football.
Yes.
In my opinion, knowledge. The one thing that you and I always talk about, Jerry, when we say who do we want to join us, and one of the things we talk about is institutional knowledge.
No doubt.
And it's one thing, look, you could be a journalist and be at, come out of Cal, some great school, right? But you don't have, even if you do that, you don't have the institutional knowledge about Texas. And, frankly, Jeff does have that. And it shows in some of his answers and gives people an understanding that he has a greater context of things. And hopefully you guys get to see that firsthand from Jeff going forward here at On Texas Football. Very happy to start year 2 that way. All right, I need to say thank you to Austin Underground and our friend Rick Vavro. Austin Underground has specialized in difficult underground commercial installations since 2004. They're going on their 21st year now. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider just too risky. Rick Vavro and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. And also, I will say this, if you are in the Jonestown area, up north of the lake there, make sure you stop by Rick's latest venture, the Lone Star Bar. He's out there hanging out every so often. Y'all stop by the Lone Star Bar up in Jonestown.
Thank you, Bobby. And we got time for just a couple more here. Got somebody asking about Aaliyah Chavez. Everything's still the same from what I hear, looking good for Texas. Don't expect her to announce anytime soon, but looking good. And then we got a super chat from Football Junkie. Thank you, Football Junkie. Hill will be overshadowed by Simmons this offseason and season, but 13 sacks and 180 plus tackles in his career thus far is big.
Yeah, for sure. Great. He's had a great 2 years. Very good. I mean, depends on how you define words. 2 years at Texas. I think the biggest thing for him, the biggest thing for him is different than the biggest thing for Texas for me, Bobby. Like, I want to see him rushing the quarterback more, playing downhill a lot. But when all these NFL mock drafts and everything come out, it's gonna his draft stock next year could be dependent on, does he improve in pass coverage? Do they see him as a 3-down player in the NFL? For Texas, I want him to get 10 sacks next year because I think for this Texas team, you mentioned it earlier, Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons coming at you from different edges is extremely difficult to deal with. But that's not necessarily the best thing for his NFL draft stock future either. So even though that may be what he more of is in the NFL, but that development's going to be key. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how he's used next season. But he's had a heck of a 2 years.
I don't think he's overshadowed by Colin Simmons. I'll say that. In different positions, great player. I'm all in on Anthony Hill.
Yeah.
If I had to say he had to do one thing, it's not even getting into pass coverage, Jerry. It has to do with being consistent on filling holes in the run game. He was 75 to 85% there this year, I thought. He was 65% there last year or the year before as a freshman. He needs to be in that 95 to 99%, filling gaps on run plays, not letting his eyes get too big for himself in that regard. So I feel really good about Anthony Hill. He just needs to keep improving base, in my opinion.
All right, we got one more here, fellas, before we get out. And Dante, thank you, Dante. He says, I'm going to miss Silas Bolden. Jerry, do you think that Jonah Williams can make an immediate impact year one like Colin Simmons? I will say I'm about to drop a Jonah Williams update on TexasFootball.com as soon as we get off here.
There you go. Perfect segue there. So since he's playing baseball this spring and not taking part in spring football, I think it's going to be tougher for him to have that type of impact. And he's going to be sitting in on Blake Gideon's safety meetings, obviously, when he can, learning the scheme. He's a very sharp kid, got football instincts about him. But not going through spring practice, there being some really good safeties ahead of him. And even as Zealous Hicks is going to go through spring practice. By the way, he is on campus. We never even mentioned that. So much has been going on. Zealous Hicks had to wait on the NCAA clearinghouse since he went from 26 to 25. He is now on campus. With Jonah, it's all going to come down to how quickly does it click in August when he gets on the football field, Bobby, since he wasn't on the football field for this spring practice. It's a tough deal to try to balance two sports at that level he wants to. And it may set back his development curve a little bit.
Let's see. You never know until you know.
Yeah.
And the only thing I will tell you is that he is a special athlete.
Yeah.
And my question for him is, rarely do you see a guy as big as him make it at safety. Right? I mean, he's a big dude, Jerry, to be playing safety. He's bigger than any safety. He's bigger than Derek Williams, and he's bigger than Jelani McDonald. Just give you guys a sense of when I say, because Jelani McDonald, when he's out there, and Derek Williams, they look like big safeties, right? Jonah Williams is bigger than both of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's Isaiah Simmons-ish size-wise. I mean, he's 6'3", 215, 220. It's going to be hard for him not to be because he's 210, 210-ish right now, 205-ish. He actually lost weight. He was 218 at one point last spring of his junior year, and he started change up his diet, because he wanted to stay at safety. He didn't like people saying linebacker. And I was one of those who was like, hey, man, is he going to be 235, 240 one day? But he's going to be 215, 220 at 6'3". So he maxes out.
So here's my point, though. He's got two things going that are counterintuitive.
Yeah.
The position that he wants to play. One is he's trying to play baseball, too. Okay. And two is that he's already a big guy, right? That's not a normal safety size. Is he a great enough athlete? And there are guys out there. So I'm not saying no. Is he a great enough athlete to overcome both of those? If he is, all bets are off about what he can do with his life. I mean, because there are a few guys out there that just who they are, they can do that. So and I will tell you this, if he is one of those guys, he's going to be Worthy, Banks, Hills, Simmons.
No doubt.
We're going to say Williams.
Yeah.
That's how that's going to go.
And the name's been brought up a lot, but if he is that guy, he'll be compared to Kyle Hamilton when it comes to NFL draft time.
Who Terry Joseph coached, by the way.
Yeah.
Up at Notre Dame.
All right, guys. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. I want to thank them, along with Rocket Money, Mando, and Gooder, all for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in. The great questions, the super chats. Don't forget to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. And if you're not a member or you're a monthly member, take advantage of this promo code HOWE, HOWE. You'll get a full year for $39.95. Can't beat that. So be sure to check that out. Also, hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime we post new content or go live. And Bobby, what do you got later today?
We got football theory coming up. We got the winning drive on Thursday afternoon. Jeff Howe will be joining Rod Babers and CJ Vogel, as well as Coach Bob Shipley. We got a lot of stuff coming on the website as well. It is that time of year where, Jerry, we didn't even mention this enough today, but we got to talk. I mean, Junior Day is coming on Saturday.
Yeah, I think CJ and I are going to shoot a Junior Day preview today that we'll have out tonight as well.
Okay, perfect. Because, look, Longhorns probably anywhere from 75 to 100 guys, I think it looks like, and new guys are showing up. I mean, we're getting to see learning new names every minute, so we got to get into that. That's coming on Saturday. So that's one of the things we're really prepping for, Blake.
There you go. Good for sure. Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.